What's up, folks? Welcome back to TacticalTortoise. My name is Trevi, and the saga of the Arcs of Omen GT pack spoilers continues. Yesterday, I made a video talking about some new perspective rules and potential spoilers that we got from a Warhammer TV battle report, in which the players used some novel deployment and first turn mechanics that everyone watching assumed would be part of the Arcs of Omen format. Turns out to, in fact, not be the case. So in my video yesterday, I talked at length about how the potential changes that were spoiled were a little sort of inane, and if that was how the format was going to be constructed, it would actually be kind of problematic without additional rules. Now we have a look at the page of the document that governs those sections of the game, and we have found that, in fact, the rules used in the battle report were entirely erroneous, and there is no support, assuming that this leak is correct, within the Arcs of Omen packet itself. So, just like previous seasons of the GT format, after determining attacker and defender, the players will alternate setting up their units that are not in strategic reserve one at a time, starting with the defender. It is a little blurred out as well, but then under the first term determination, we can see that the players, just like previous seasons of GT, roll off. The winner automatically takes first turn. Whereas in the Warhammer TV video, it was stated that the winner of the roll-off could choose to take the first turn.
I won the roll-off for the first turn, and I chose to go first.
So I'm glad that the changes that we discussed in the last video are not actually going to be carried over into this season proper, because they seemed kind of bad. I am a little disappointed that we don't have a deploy first, go first kind of setup for this season, but I am glad that it looks like we're not going to be seeing too many sweeping changes from the previous versions. Obviously, we have already seen the missions look very similar, if not identical, to the previous season, and so far many other things are going to be the same. So if it ain't broke too badly, don't fix it. Now, the problem here, obviously, is that this doesn't exactly fill me with confidence for the Games Workshop team, since they don't even know the rules of this new format that they're trying to showcase. A little disconcerting, but I think expecting some level of incompetence from Games Workshop is sort of par for the course at this point. Now, the other thing that has been spoiled are the Battle Brothers rules that are going to govern how second detachments are brought in the Arcs of Omen season, and how soup armies are constructed. Now, for those who don't know, armies in the Arcs of Omen format are going to use almost entirely one detachment. They have a new detachment type called an Arcs of Omen detachment, which is basically a huge amalgamated detachment that gives you extreme flexibility, allows your compulsory slots to be taken from almost any battlefield role, so you don't need troops to construct the detachment, and instead, if you want to focus on some other unit type, you can take those in your compulsories. Now, this does bring up some problems for armies that are trying to build, multiple sub-factions together or unlock abilities by taking detachments purely of one unit type, because you no longer have the ability to pay for a second detachment in order to unlock additional slots or to serve as a separate detachment for keyword purposes. So, for example, you can no longer bring a Supreme Command in alongside whatever your main detachment is. So if you're trying to bring in units like Supreme Commanders, it's going to be pretty tough for you. Characters like Gilliman, Abaddon, or the Silent King have been pointed out as specifically being incredibly difficult to bring. Now, the way that you get second detachments are with these Battle Brothers rules. This is basically how you're going to be bringing in allies. There are some issues with the rules as they currently stand. The only detachment types you're allowed to bring are super heavy auxiliary or patrol detachments, and they are governed by strict rules on what keywords can be brought within that detachment. So those are governed by these Battle Brothers rules. If you have an Imperium Arcs of Omen detachment, you can bring in Agents of the Imperium, Imperial Knights, or Votan alongside them, so that's for any Imperial faction. As your Yanni or Drukari can bring a Harlequin Patrol in order to get that Traveling Players Patrol in there if you wanted to soup. Astra Militarum can take a Tempestus Scions detachment. Genestealer Cults can take a Brood Brothers detachment. Interestingly, I don't think that there is any entry for Tyranids here, so souping Tyranids and Genestealer Cults together is just entirely dead in this format. Chaos armies can have one super heavy auxiliary from Chaos Knights, and in addition, if you're bringing Disciples of Be'lakor, that gets expanded to one House Korvax detachment that is Bellacor's sort of personal Knight house, as well as one Traitoris Astartes patrol detachment. And then there are a ton of rules governing all of the Heretic Astartes legions. So a standard Traitoris Astartes detachment that is not Emperor's Children gets any Legiones Daemonica patrol detachment as an ally, and then the cult-specific legions all get their cult-specific patrol detachments. So now, talking about Chaos Demons as a whole, I think the faction's going to be pretty hard hit by these new rules, especially because they unlock special abilities for themselves via their Warp Storm abilities, depending on the types of detachments they have in their army. Now those abilities are only going to unlock based on the Arcs of Omen detachment, because they have no other option to take additional allied detachments from other Chaos Allegiances. So either you have a souped Arcs of Omen detachment, which would get you no additional Warp Storm abilities, or your Arcs of Omen detachment is all of one Chaos God, and you do not have access to any other detachment. There's also some weirdness with the Imperium entry here. You can include an Agents of the Imperium Auxiliary Support detachment, but auxiliary support detachments are not one of the types of allied detachments that is supported by the allied rules in the Muster Armies step, which means I'm not sure that it is considered an allied detachment, and I think it will still cost you command points if it's not specifically a super heavy auxiliary. That's the only way that you can include non-patrol or super heavy auxiliary detachments. Now, the other thing that I'm a little bit worried about is how these detachments interact with army or sub-faction abilities. It looks like there are some missing rules that the previous packets had that governed how detachment abilities were unlocked that are missing in this Arcs of Omen packet. Exactly how that is going to impact things once we see the data slate and the entire book, I think, is going to be important to break down. Will you stop? But for now, it's going to be something odd to think about. Specifically, it looks like allied detachments will probably break your army abilities. They don't have any special exemption from that. Overall, these new army list construction rules are going to be really transformative to the game. They take a lot of the focus away from these sort of face characters that you would often see be included thanks to a Supreme Command detachment, and no longer having access to the Supreme Command detachment means that a lot of these characters that have been sort of upholding a lot of factions and a lot of super factions, ones like Abaddon, like the Silent King, are no longer available. I am a little interested that you can't pay for a detachment out of your normal faction in order to try to unlock separate sub-faction abilities, but I think that's sort of counter to the intention of what these rules are trying to do within the format. Anyway, let me know what you think down below about these rules. This is mostly going to be a little bit of a stopgap video because I think within the next 24 to 48 hours, we are going to have the entirety of the book spoiled, and we'll get to talk about everything. Certainly this weekend we will know. We'll have all the information. And I think the only open question will be the data slate and whether or not all the new balance changes are also going to be spoiled at the same time. Anyway, thanks for watching all the way to the end of the video. Bit of a small one today. Remember to keep it classy, folks, and have happy wargaming.